you so much. We will wait a few more minutes, like 2 minutes, and then we get started. Okay, so I think that we will slowly get started. Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining our roundtable, Voices of Hope, Realities of Afghan Women. My name is Jessica Besh, and I am a program officer at the Ban Ki-moon Center, and I will be guiding you throughout today's discussions. First, please note, as usual, this event is being recorded and live streamed. We will have time for your questions and remarks after the roundtable. You can then either write in the chat or unmute yourself and address the speakers directly. Before moving to the discussion with our three amazing speakers, you will be warmly welcomed by the Ban Ki-moon Center CEO, Monika Fröhler. And we also have the great honor of having Her Excellency's Ambassador Manisha Bakhtari here with us today to give some special opening remarks. Welcome, Ambassador. As some of you might already know, women's rights and empowerment lies at the core of the Ban Ki-moon Center mandate. We are very happy to have a dedicated and inspirational alumni network with young leaders from around the world, a lot of them amazing women change makers. Our former Afghan fellows are also here with us today as speakers and in the audience, and I would really like to thank them wholeheartedly for taking the initiative, requesting to get active together and co-organizing this online roundtable to spotlight the experiences, but also the visions of Afghan women on the ground and around the world. And without wanting to talk too much, I will now pass over to the Ban Ki-moon Center CEO, Monika Fröhler, who is, I'm sure, just as delighted as I am to be here together with all of you.
Thank you, Jessica. Your Excellency, Manisha Bakhtari, dear Ban Ki-moon Center Fellows, dear alumni, dear speakers, dear audience. We are gathering here today for a very serious subject matter, to hear voices of hope and to learn about realities of Afghan women on the ground. Today, we are turning to all of you to exchange and to learn and also to hopefully become active. It's the Ban Ki-moon Center vision to empower women and the youth in the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals and also the Paris Climate Agreement. Let me take you on the journey back to 2019, when we had a very inspirational cohort of young stellar leaders, including unique fellows, 5 unique fellows from Afghanistan, inspiring women. Farida, Horia, Lale, Soheila, Munira, they were all with us with the Ban Ki-moon Center's training, and it was very different times. Yet, our fellows, we can proudly say, continue to lead the way for peace, justice, and human rights to date. Considering the recent developments in the country, including the Taliban takeover in August 2021, and the implication for women's rights and the intensified humanitarian crisis, our fellows turned to us and asked us to create a platform for hearing voices, for hearing their perspectives. And we immediately said, of course, we are proud and honored to be taking that idea into reality. And this is why we are gathering today. It is yet, today's discussion is not about victims. It is very much about resilient, strong, and very agent change makers. We want to spotlight women's movements, local, regional, but some even also global, of the diaspora, for example, in their efforts of fighting for sustainable peace. Today, we are taking these active agents of change into the spotlight. Since the fall of Kabul, the Taliban have threatened the fundamental rights and freedoms of women and girls. Civil society leaders are at risk. The latest data that is known by many of you from the United Nations assistance mission in Afghanistan reveals that we are talking about an escalation of extrajudicial killings, disappearances of former government employees. We are talking about the detention of women's rights activists and journalists. And we are alarmed by reports of UN Women, by civil society agents and activists who are unable to drive, to take public transport, to simply move from one place to the other. You can imagine that such constraints increasingly limit women's ability to earn a living, access healthcare and education, seek protection, escape situations of violence, and exercise their individual and collective rights. Michelle Bachelet, who you surely all know, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, just recently said that with the announcement by the Taliban that all women must cover their faces in public, and even, well, if they don't do it, that it will lead to punishments, we are deeply concerned, as she was. You know that in April 2022, the de facto authority decided to postpone secondary schooling for Afghan girls. We know that violence against women increased dramatically since the takeover. We know that even child marriage has increased again because of the dire economic situation in which many households are. The media landscape has completely changed. You have to imagine that Reporters Without Borders claim that out of 700 women journalists that they were closely connected to, fewer than 100 are still working and active and being there with their voices. Many fled the country and many are barred from working at all. We are talking about a humanitarian crisis. We are talking about food insecurity faced by 23 million people. We are talking 2.6 million refugees and 3.5 million IDPs, internally displaced people. We are talking about catastrophe, but we are also talking about the strength, the resilience, and the agency of the grassroots leaders that we have the privilege to hear today. One of the leaders is Sarah. She's joining us today from Pakistan and will talk about the mobilization of the women movements on the ground and women's resistance and the challenges they face. An important other voice of the Afghan diaspora is joining us today from Canada, Marufa Shinwari. She will be talking about her efforts in supporting Afghan women and students in these difficult times. And our third speaker is no other than our former dear BKMC fellow, Horia Sardar, who has been instrumental in organizing this roundtable and who is a strong voice for women's rights and leadership. We are honored to have all of you here. And we are honored, Your Excellency, Ambassador of Afghanistan to Vienna, Baghari, that we have you as International Gender Champion talking to us today and to share your special remarks. Today's event shall create solidarity, space to listen and to learn, and to shed a light on very important voices from Afghanistan. Shukran.
Thank you very much, Monica, for your warm welcome remarks. And without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Her Excellency Manisha Bakhtari. She is a diplomat, lecturer, and author. She was Afghanistan's ambassador to the Nordic countries from 2009 to 2015 and served as the Chief of Staff of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Kabul from 2007 to 2009. Prior to a diplomatic career, Ambassador Bakhtari was renowned for her work on gender advocacy in the nonprofit sector, namely with the Cooperation Center for Afghanistan. During her time there, she traveled across Afghanistan, aiming to implement global gender equality standards and raise awareness. Ambassador Bakhtari received her bachelor's degree in journalism from Kabul University and her master's degree from the university's Persian literature department. She has published hundreds of academic and journalistic articles, as well as 7 academic books, and she also writes fiction. Her short stories are often centered around the experiences of women and the socio-cultural dynamics of the Afghan society. Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining us today. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jessica. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, dear Afghan Fellows. Before I begin, I would like to extend my thanks to Ms. Monica Frual, CEO of the Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens, for her gracious invitation to today's roundtable. I'm very grateful for the attention on Afghanistan's current situation that you're bringing to the Austrian and international community here in Vienna. I would also like to welcome and thank all of you here this afternoon. My country is facing great challenges and I appreciate your support. I praise Ban Ki-moon Center's mission and work in advancing women's empowerment in Afghanistan. The Ban Ki-moon Center has been a great tool in empowering youth and women by providing opportunities for education, leadership training, facilitating mediation, and engaging in advocacy. In particular, the Ban Ki-moon Center's Women's Empowerment Program, in cooperation with the Diplomatic Academy of Vienna, has trained 5 exceptional change makers from Afghanistan who each implemented sustainable development goals, micro projects in their respective local communities. I would like to sincerely congratulate Ms. Monica Frual, the 8th United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and former Austrian President Heinz Fischer as co-chairs for our fruitful cooperation and for giving young, dedicated women from Afghanistan the opportunity to gain leadership skills and essential skills to influence future decision-making process in a sustainable and impactful way. Empowerment and education of young Afghan people is essential for the country's pathway towards development, stability, and peace. Unfortunately, not all Afghan women and girls enjoy the same opportunities. Since August 15, 2021, Afghan women continue to face persistent gender-based discrimination, segregation, apartheid, and violence. The Taliban's hostility towards women is an everyday occurrence where women have been barred from attending school, barred from work, and have been imposed a strict dress code. As Madam Monica just mentioned, Afghanistan has become the world's first nation to officially limit schooling based on gender. The Taliban will not accept women's political, social, or public participation. They do not accept any oppositional political activity, not even peaceful protest. When women attempt to conduct peaceful protest, they were met with violence, and I'm sure Dr. Zahra is here today and she can take us through that experience that dark and bad experience. In the face of these threats and this violence, women have now changed their way of fighting and are more likely to spread their demands through social media or in small groups away from the streets. Afghan women have stood strong. They did not give up. And the local women's activism and their efforts in the fight for sustainable peace are truly admirable. I salute them. Afghanistan, and particularly Afghan women, made stunning progress over the course of 20 years, and we have seen the possibilities that can be achieved when women are educated, supported, and uplifted. This will not go away just because the previous government has been toppled, or whatever happened in Afghanistan. The spirit of Afghan women will never die. A big part of this spirit lies also with the international Afghan diaspora. Without your dedicated work, making sure that the world does not forget about the humanitarian crises and human rights abuse occurring in Afghanistan, the future of Afghanistan would look much much less bright. Your commitment brings me hope and shows the world that opening doors and arms to refugees is a good thing. It's up to men and women all around the world to stand with Afghan women to gain and protect their rights. I will not shy away from making any efforts to inspire and convince men and women about the advantages, necessity, and justness of gender equality and parity as prerequisites for peace and security, development, human rights, prosperity, and well-being for all. I use the opportunity to call on the international community to continue monitoring the situation and support efforts to ensure the upholding of the enjoyment of all human rights by Afghan women and girls, and in particular, immediate respect for their rights to education, right to work, right to public and political participation, and right to information and freedom of expression and movement. The war crimes and widespread human rights violation repeatedly committed by the Taliban need not only an equivocal condemnation, but also the immediate application of preventive and accountability measures. It's only through our shared values and objectives that we can empower Afghan women to build a better tomorrow. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for your inspiring words and all of your important work. I love how you said the spirit of Afghan women will never die, because every time I meet women from Afghanistan, unfortunately only online, but also our fellows, this spirit is really what I immediately feel. And dear audience, it is now my pleasure to introduce to you our three stellar Afghan activists. And first, I would like to welcome Dr. Zahra. She is a dentist and a women's rights activist. She is leading the Afghan Women's Unity and Solidarity Movement, a movement that includes more than 200 women's rights activists from different educational backgrounds in Kabul. She was arrested by the Taliban due to her leadership in these protests before fleeing to Pakistan. And dear Zahra, we are very much looking forward to your discussion, and thank you for joining us today. Our second speaker is Ban Ki-moon Center Fellow Horia Sardar, who fled from Afghanistan to Taliban in October last year, and who is now living in Canada with her family. In Kabul, before the Taliban takeover in August 2021, she served as Director General of Early Childhood Development at the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs. She was also working as a Deputy Program Director for Women's Economic Empowerment, National Priority Program of the World Bank in Afghanistan, and she was also serving as a gender expert at the Senior Advisory Office of the Afghan President on the United Nations Affairs. Her academic background is in linguistics and gender and women's studies, and Horia is a member of the Next Generation Leaders Program at the McCain Institute of Leadership in Arizona. Horia, thank you so much. It is a pleasure to have you. And I see that we have a few technical difficulties, but yeah, I'm sure that you can hear me. So yeah, it's all good. And our third speaker is Marufa Shinwari. She is a graduate of the Faculty of Law at Tajik State University and served as a lecturer at Kabul University in 1989. In 1992, she and her family lived as refugees in Russia after escaping the Afghan Civil War. In 1998, she and her husband immigrated to Canada. After settling in Hamilton, Marufa spent 11 years working as a director of the Resettlement Assistance Program. In 2011, she started her new position as the executive director of the Immigrant Culture and Art Association. She has devoted the last 3 years of studying issues on gender and social justice from a feminist perspective at McMaster University. Welcome, dear Marufa. I already talked to each of the three of you individually, and I was really impressed by your advocacy efforts, your leadership skills, and your devotion to women's rights. And I really can't wait for this discussion. And I would jump right into the first question. And I would like to ask, maybe let's start with you, Zahra. Can you, I'm sorry, just 1 second. I will talk to my technical support. Okay, I just see that Zahra is not here. Yeah, she told me that she might have some technical issues, so we will just ask the question once she is back. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. I hope she can rejoin. I will then go to our first question to Horia. Can you please tell us a little bit about what has changed since the Taliban takeover? We already heard now a little bit from Monica Fröhler and also from Her Excellency. What repercussions, especially women and children, have, particularly how you experienced it, maybe focusing on labor rights and women's economic empowerment. What was your experience at the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs?
Thank you very much, Jessica. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thank you for the note, and also I would like to extend my congratulations to the wonderful team that has worked for this opportunity to be happening, and we are here today to use this platform as an advocacy tool to talk about Afghan women's situation in Afghanistan, and also to have and put some light on the activism being through in the ground and also in the diaspora community. Thank you very much, Ms. Monica, for the wonderful welcome note. I count on Ban Ki-moon Center as one of my second homes in the world. And whenever something is happening, that's one of the homes that I'm calling on. And I'm really happy and a proud WIP fellow. And it's really hopeful for me, because whenever we have asked something, we got positive response. So thank you very much for providing us this opportunity and giving us Ban Ki-moon Center platform to share our views, to raise our voice, and to do advocacy for our Afghan fellows. And thank you very much, Jessica, for the all efforts through these months that you've been doing, following up for all these stuff. And also, I'm really honored to be joined by Ambassador Bakhtari today for today's session, Dr. Zahra and Ustad Shinwari. Regarding your question, I would go a little bit into details, because from the first day that they took Afghanistan, the Taliban took Afghanistan, things were drastically changed in different aspects, but more for Afghan women. Since the Taliban took over Afghanistan in August 2021, higher living costs and unemployment have left many Afghans with barely enough money to buy food. However, the Taliban government has no solution for stopping the collapse of Afghanistan economy. Instead, they have decided to focus on setting up rules of conduct and dress codes for women based on a fundamentalist interpretation of Islam. There are 0 women in the government set up by the Taliban. And also, Without an inclusive government, how Afghan women could be able to challenge the laws and policies of the Taliban? There are little to no means by which they can exercise any self-determination, especially in light of the harsh Taliban responses to female protesters. We have been witness that the disturbing disappearances of female protesters are stark reminders of the Taliban's response to women voicing their political opinions. Although those women were reportedly released, but the fact that they were disappeared at all has had a worst effect on female activists. Women have been informed that they cannot go to work or travel without a male guardian. Lately, they have announced that all women should cover their faces in public and women should only leave their homes in cases of necessity. And that violation of this directive will lead to punishment of their male relatives, which is barely the violation of freedom of movement. For the last 9 or 10 months, girls over the age of 12 have been prohibited from attending school, and segregation of women and men in universities is negatively impacting women's opportunities in post-secondary institutions. Women have been expelled from many areas of labor force, including the media and entertainment fields. The Taliban has forced the closure of domestic abuse shelters, leaving survivors without critical assistance and protections. Many survivors, as well as shelter staff, lawyers, judges, government officials, and other involved in protective services been left at risk of violence and death. The government's Ministry of Women Affairs has been replaced by a ministry for the propagation of virtue and prevention of vice, and women have been excluded from the cabinet. The risk of child marriage, as Ambassador mentioned and also Ms. Monica mentioned, is a common act in rural areas of Afghanistan, is reportedly growing as teenage girls are prevented from attending school. The latest order to make hijab compulsory is one of the harshest controls on women's lives in Afghanistan since the Taliban seized power. From then, if a woman does not cover her face outside at home, according to decree, her father or closest male relative could be imprisoned or fired from government job. Some rules for public life become stricter. Visiting public park, for instance, are divided by gender. Women are granted access only 3 days a week, and access to the parks are limited to men on the remaining 4 days. Women lawyers, judges, and prosecutors were effectively dismissed from their jobs and forced into hiding. They face reprisals from men whom they had convicted and imprisoned for domestic and other gender-based violence, who were subsequently freed from prison by the Taliban. And there were also a report of ex-prisoners and Taliban fighters inspecting the homes of female judges. Violence against women and girls remained widespread but chronically underreported, because in the vast majority of cases, no action has been taken by the Taliban. Violence against women raised as women's legal and other support mechanisms began shutting down, in particular when women's shelters closed. Afghan women have been banned from traveling more than 72 kilometers without a male relative since December. The Taliban made it illegal for drivers to give rides to women traveling alone, which prevents women from being able to depart if they are facing domestic violence. In November, the Taliban banned women from appearing on TV shows and in movies, and ordered female journalists and presenters to wear headscarves. And their new order to wear masks, you can see that all over it, and also there is a campaign everywhere to put masks in the support of Afghan women journalists. According to a report released by Reporters Without Borders, most female employees of media organizations stopped working after the Taliban took over. The Taliban has effectively prohibited girls from receiving education higher than primary school by keeping most secondary schools for teenage girls closed. The decision to restrict education breaches international human rights obligations to which Afghanistan is a state party, including the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and the Convention on the Rights of the Child. In September, the Taliban education minister announced that gender segregation and Islamic dress code will be mandatory for universities. All female students, teachers, and staff must wear Islamic robe and niqab that covers their hair, body, and most of face, according to the regulations issued by the Ministry of Higher Education. Reports shows that women's civil society organization and activists of women being unable to drive, take public transport, or simply move from one place to another. Such constraints increasingly limit women's ability to earn a living, access healthcare, and education. These violations of women and girls' rights are costing Afghanistan in different ways and impacting its social and economic growth. Current restrictions on women's employment have been estimated to result in an immediate economic loss of up to $1 billion US, according to UN reports, or up to 5% of Afghanistan GDP. There's almost universal poverty in the country. More than half of the population needs some form of humanitarian assistance. An entire generation is threatened by food insecurity and malnutrition. Yet Taliban actions to exclude half of the population from contributing to this situation is really depressing. Everyone in Afghanistan is affected by the current crisis, but the situation for women and girls is particularly concerning as their rights and access to opportunities have become increasingly challenged. And finally, Afghan women have protested all these restrictions multiple times, but although of being assaulted with rifles, tear gas, and metal clubs, but still there is no progress up to date.
Thank you so much, Horia. This is really a detailed mapping of how women are being erased from public life. And I'm sure I see that Zahra is back. Very nice to have you back. Can you maybe tell us, I mean, we now heard all of this, how were women protesting against all of this, and how are they going to the streets now? I mean, with all of these increased restrictions, how do they demonstrate now? Can you please tell us more about the Afghan Women's Unity and Solidarity team, how it started, and then now maybe also how it evolved over time? Are there some different strategies, for example, that you use?
Hello to everyone. Thank you from Ban Ki-moon office for this meeting. And first time I want to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Zahra Paras Mohammadi, a dentist and a civil activist. I lead a team called Women's Unity and Solidarity of Afghan Women, which was formed after the Taliban came to power. We have women from all parts of Afghanistan with different fields of job, from doctors, teachers, reporters, artists. They made history for themselves, become of their rights against the Taliban. Women like Khatul Farhud, Diba Farahman, Parisa Arifi, Wida, Wajiha Miri, Sanam Kabiri, Maryam Ahmadi, and others. They are all hidden after I captured by Taliban, but they are still planning and standing up to any Taliban order and protesting in any way. And also I want to say something about the Unity and Solidarity of Afghan Women team. The Afghan Women's Unity and Solidarity teams, a movement is a movement that was made from all ethnic women from different groups and added everyone who had a motive to fight for the street and shoot it and made protest. And we showed reaction to every comment.
I'm sorry, I don't want to. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
But to face.
Sorry, we can hear you very badly. Can you maybe try just turning off your camera for a second so that we can hear what you're saying, because it's very interesting. Okay. It would be a pity. Yes? Okay.
Okay. Their rights, and later we took to the street and shoot it and made protests. And we showed reaction to every comment of Taliban that led us to face repression and sight by the Taliban due to the new coverage. They came to prevent so much, such as their fire, air, and ground. gunshots breaking our phones, and they arrested of the protesting girls. We were protesting in the street. I led the team until I was arrested on 3rd of February. Taliban arrested me on 3rd of February in my clinic. Every time I think about that date, I cry because I haven't any crime. Just I protest to our rights. They arrested me on 3rd of February. They told me to stop, but I don't show reaction. I totally ignored it, and after the torture and captivity of the protesting girls, the women's uprising weakened a little, but after I released, the team resumed its activities. Still, we have programs, and now either it's in closed areas or in different ways. All these girls are many way, they try many way to show the capacity and also the bravest that Taliban can't silence this movement, these women, because they are very brave. They fight against Taliban. But Taliban tried that, arrested them, killed them, removed them, but they can't.
Thank you so much, Zahra. We had a bit of difficulties hearing because of the connection. So maybe for the next answer, could you please try and just turn off your camera so that we can hear you better because of the connection? Would that be okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you for elaborating on the women's movements and just the dire situation that they are in. Maybe Marufa, I mean, you left Afghanistan with your family in 1992, and if I remember correctly, your last visit to the country was in 2014. So in your eyes, what changed during these different time periods? And of course, also since the Taliban takeover, and how do you experience the new generation of Afghan women fighting for their rights?
Thank you very much, dear Jessica, and I'm honored to be among my fellow Afghan women leaders. It is honor, and I got a little bit stressed out when I heard what Zara she's saying. It was not that much clear, but you know, I got emotional to hear how she's brave, and Afghan woman became more strong than our generation in the past. Saying that, it is very interesting question, because always when I hear about my past, I feel that I am in a roller coaster, because I witness and experience social changes from monarchy as an authoritarian regime with no power sharing into a republic. I was witness of democratic left-leaning government that couldn't convince the tribal and Islamic leaders in rural area, and became a victim of Cold War to a fundamentalist jihadi regime. I studied law in Russia. I experienced socialism there. And later on, I witnessed the collapse of USSR when I became a refugee in Uzbekistan. Living, working, and getting back to academia in Canada was not an easy path for me either. However, after 18 years living in Canada in 2014, I went back to Afghanistan and started a new journey, and it was a new milestone in my life. I have devoted myself to Afghanistan regularly, and as an activist volunteer, I started lecturing as of 2015 through a new program which called Gender and Women Studies program. The Faculty of Social Science for the first time in the history of Afghanistan, with the help of many faculty members and international support, they put curriculum together, and I was the lecturer of feminist theories in that program. For 3 years, regularly, one semester, I was teaching feminist theories in Afghanistan. What changed? I have to tell you that through the first visit in Afghanistan, I saw a new Afghanistan was standing socially. While it was ruled by the jihadis, immature characters who lacked knowledge of governance and politics. However, the new generation were more enthusiastic, focused, and they were they had the critical thinking skills in a very high level. I found new Afghan, especially women, just a new generation who were enthusiastic, doing politics, singing, doing art, going back to school and working. It was a big hope for me. It was a big hope for me. Through my teaching, I observed how the social changes fractured the strict custom and the tribal culture in Afghanistan. And it was a big question for me to think about it. I witnessed how women, they're standing and they're trying to see the new knowledge that they gain and question parallel what's happening socially around them, and trying to change socially the things that they were benefiting women. And all this observation came to the point that after the collapse of the regime and Taliban getting in power, it showed that new generation of Afghan women are different than my generation in the past. They survived and they will survive. And with the standing front of Taliban, they show that they question the world silence. Because everybody around the world, they thought that the new generation of Taliban, they are new generation and they will be different than in the past in 2001. As jihadis, when they came to power, their children and their women, they became part of the government, and they tried to run NGOs, projects, and some even became politicians. So the naive thinking or beliefs on different Taliban generation was the biggest mistake. And women, Afghan women, bravely like Zahra, they stand up and they show to the world that Taliban still with that fundamentalist beliefs, and they didn't change. So they shock the world by first strikes and up to date their movement. Their movement is a golden pages of Afghan history that no one can forget. It will be part of our memory, but it will be written in golden color, and it will be never forgotten. So therefore, I saw how I see the movement right now. I believe that they need more solidarity from not only diaspora, but a united movement within the country. As much the women from different provinces and the groups are together, that much they are stronger. And I believe that we need this movement to become bigger, and Afghan people, which includes men, to get included. When we look at the history of world history, always women, they were forward. If you see at the French Revolution or October Revolution in Russia and so on, women, they were first step up. So we cannot forget about that. And I give salute to Zahra Jan, to Umaira, to Huria Jan, and to all Afghan women who are standing for equality, for social justice, and for their right today. I hope I could answer your question. But about Taliban and what's happening, I appreciate answer from Huria Jan, and Monica said well, and Her Excellency Manisha Jan, she captured that part. Thank you.
Hello, sorry, my laptop just broke down, so I switched with my colleague. I hope that everyone can hear me well.
Yes, we do. We can hear you.
Great,
Yeah.
great. Okay, very sorry for the inconvenience. Yes, Marufa, I really like how in the end you said that we also have to include men. I mean, we were talking about women now a lot, but yeah, we also really need everyone. We need the whole civil society and also everyone from the international community to really have a strong society and to create sustainable peace. Now, talking about the international community, what do you think are the challenges of the international community's support? I mean, we can see that there is solidarity with Afghanistan, with the Afghan women, but where do you see other shortcomings? What is your advice? What can we do better? I mean, everyone, international organizations, NGOs, but also the media, civil society, the diaspora. What is your advice? What are your thoughts? And maybe I would give the floor first to Horia. That's okay, you are first on my screen.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica. As of my research and analysis, the situation, and I've been part of different information sessions within the international organization, the diaspora initiatives that are working from outside Afghanistan. And I've been through these reports prepared by UN and other international organizations on the situation in the country and providing their inputs. I have noted some point that, and I have listed that I wanted to just share here, and according to my analysis, mostly from gender lens, which is my academic background. So I have noted these points as a shortages or as a limitation to the international intervention in Afghanistan, and especially to the situation of Afghan women. The first thing that I could notice was the lack of a proper coordination and monitoring and evaluation mechanism for engaging with Taliban. I couldn't see any proper method and policy to be followed by international community and organization while discussing with Taliban. If it's about girls' education, it's about their political participation, if it's about protection involving women. So I couldn't see any method or policy, especially a mechanism where some punishments or some sort of condition-based methods were not considered. Also, there was a lack of policy within the donor community to match commitments with real financing. So always we see their condemns and also their speech that they share their concern over the Taliban and repeatedly asking them to change their mindset towards women and the situation, but there is no real financing to the initiatives that been going on the ground or from outside. For example, like girls' education, the education sector must be prioritized in any international donor package, because I think that's the most basic right the girls have and it need to be considered. The other point that I have noted was lack of sustainability and economic opportunity in program design to avoid aid dependency. Most of the programs were urgent based and without any consideration of having sustainability. So the programs are mostly focusing on urgent short-term intervention instead of sustainable approaches. Humanitarian aid providers should ensure continuation of development assistance, and training project is a key factor in ensuring long-term stability. The other point that from a gender lens we can see is the absence of Afghan women leaders in the development of these assistance policies, programs, and its implementation. We can see that this point is really serious. The other thing is lack of support, lack of a support policy or mechanism to protect Afghan women movement and Afghan women activists on the ground and in diaspora. We always hear that these women should be protected, the Taliban should respect their rights, but there is no specific mechanism how to protect these women, how to look after it, how to go into details. So from words, it should come to actions and to proper programs to look after these words. Absence of a targeted funding stream to support women's organization in Afghanistan. According to latest reports, most of the fundings are not being gone to those women-led organizations because they are a small organization. They have the shortage of funding. So there is a strong need for a targeting funding stream for those organizations to be actively, because if we want to provide women with protection and service, we have to do it from women, by women, to women. Absence of, as Ms. Shanwari noted this point, I'm also insisting on it, absence of unity and coherency in the networks of Afghan women rights activists in Afghanistan and abroad. Because when it comes to Afghan women's rights or Afghan women's situation, there should be some sort of a specific and united network to work together and continuously. Also, the funding capacity and transparency of UN offices and some of the reports that I have noted this down, because during the grants allocation process for humanitarian aid, mostly there is a high demand for administrative costs. And beside that, there is a taxation from Taliban side on these local NGOs. So this is a big burden on those NGOs to carry on with their services. So it means most of these humanitarian aids at the end, the main beneficiary could not get as much as it was planned at the start. I have also noted some points regarding the programs, specifically the shortage and limitation of programs regarding the current situation in the country. Lack of gender mainstreaming in all internationally supported programs to dedicate finance meeting the needs of Afghan women and girls, directly funding women's groups that reach larger communities and women heads of households is a key first step. The absence of men's advocacy, as Ustad Shinwari mentions, and networking for women's rights and programs. So I would go a little bit more far that the organization led by men should advocate for women-led organizations to be included in the humanitarian projects, including by refusing to accept or implement projects until women-led partner organizations are able to operate. So it's not only about joining women for advocacy, but also when it comes to financing, they also have to join their sisters. Lacking of a united M&E system mechanism within the donor community to monitor aid provisions to ensure equitable distribution to women and minorities. Women should have access to support in any form, including food, shelter, work, and education. Women-led NGOs must also be equipped with resourcing and programs to ensure access to the money moving through the country. So Jessica, these were the points that I have noted down regarding the limitation and shortage of the program that been implemented and the ones that are going on. And you have also asked about how we can do. So maybe we can cover that in another question, or should I go ahead with those points as well, the recommendations?
Maybe Zahra or Marufa, do you have anything to add? I mean, this has already been very specific, and thank you for all of this information. A lot of this is also new to me and also, yeah, leaves me thinking, and it's very good input for all of us, I think, in the audience. Marufa, maybe do you have anything else to add? Some things that, yeah, you think?
Thank you so much. Yes, Hurriya, she did give very good points out, but I see it from a different perspective, a little bit broader, because anything happened today, it's historic and it's connected with the past. I see it, the first thing I see the challenge was United States of America with its intervention in Afghanistan failed to have a centralized government. And with the collapse of that government, the Taliban government continued that cultural behavior, and they don't have central government as well. So you see pieces in different provinces are different. One, for example, in Kabul, they are closing, shutting down schools, and you see some schools are open here in Herat, or in Kandahar is happening something different. So that warlord culture of running the and governance is continuing right now with Taliban as well. So this is one point that we have to keep in mind. And the problem is to deal with what central government from outside to help women in local stage. It's impossible. Makes impossible. The other point that I have from when we look out of the box from the world point of view, after the US intervention, the entire world were playing kind of role of followers. They never deal with Afghanistan independently. So whatever US were doing, the world was following as an NGOs. They providing through the initiatives that was taken by US, other countries, they were contributing to that. For example, women empowerment, they had small projects and so on. So even the education system became privatized. And because of that, institution became kind of an NGO. It was helpful for the previous government for the corruption. And at the same time, it did help mostly people to get more education because, but the institution or schools, universities, they were getting funds from outside. The moment the funding done, so the institution collapsed. Therefore, continuation of that most of universities and schools in land right now in Afghanistan, it's shut down. And to reopen that, again, you have to make it through an NGO. So this NGOs that they were in field in Afghanistan, they were in very short term, maximum 3 years. And those 3 years of contribution, when the funding is finished, it stopped continuation of teaching or providing services to locals. Therefore, I believe that for the world to help more within such a very strange dynamic right now, to do their own assessment, individual assessment, without being a follower, just do assessment, and after that we can see how they can contribute. Because right now, as my colleagues they mentioned, situation is getting every day worse, especially related to women and girl. Freedom and equality is just such a disaster situation. So therefore, I believe that each either country or NGOs or organization from outside, they can play a significant role, as I have later on. I will share my experience from just the university that I'm involved with. So these are the 2 points that I really want to highlight, that the NGO practice is, if it is in a long term, that's acceptable, and that will be more productive than very short period of 1 year or 6 months or 2 years or 3 years project. It will not help, because Afghanistan need fundamental help and fundamental change with what's happening right now there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really nice to also have your point of view from the academic and the educational side. Maybe, Zahra, is there anything you would like to add when it comes to grassroots movements? So what is something that how could your movement get more support, even locally or also regionally? What is something that, could help you increase your resilience and also just gaining more traction? In case you can hear me, I see that your camera is out. Ah, there you go.
The international community should not just be a spectator. It should defend the rights of our people. It should defend the rights of our people every day and let the world know that these are the same Taliban who burned the schools, destroyed the bridges, shot the children, shot the doctors, tortured the pregnant mothers, beheaded them, and did not show mercy to the soldiers. So please, I request from international community to do something that would focus towards us. Please don't forget Afghan people, don't forget Afghan women, and please focus to situation of Afghan women.
Thank you so much, Tahra. I see that it is now already 6 o'clock, and maybe I would love to open the floor now to the audience, and then after the Q&A, in case there's still something that Horia or Marufa you would like to say that has not been covered by the questions or the remarks from the audience, then you can still have some last words. Is that okay for you if we do it like that?
That's okay, perfectly.
Okay, great. I see that Hadia has a question. It's super nice to see you, Hadia. Hi, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Jessie. First of all, I wanted to say thank you very much for conducting today's program. I would like to express my gratitude to today's panel, Ms. Marufa Shinwari, Excellency Manija Bakhtari, Horia Faizi, and Her Excellency Monica Fala. It's incredible to see you guys. My name is Hadia, and I'm a women's rights advocate and currently living in Afghanistan. I am a feminist and I've been working with this feminist organization for the past 3 years. And I'm also a women's rights advocate and a global peace ambassador. I had the privilege of being mentee of Excellency Manija Bakhtari for the last 2 years and had been incredible learning from her. I will just directly jump to the question. I would really love to talk to all of you. Thank you very much for showing your solidarity. It really means a lot to us. My question directs to my respected mentor. And as much as I really appreciate that, she has been doing great and she has been doing remarkable in order to raise their voice and make sure the international community hears what Afghan women want to say. I wanted to ask what we can do to stop the international community from normalizing this terrorist and suicide bombers group, Taliban, of becoming a very distinguished politician and being recognized. What we can do to stop the international community from normalizing the Taliban, and what we can do to gain the international community's attention to the current crisis in Afghanistan. It really is heartbreaking to see the entire world knows of how Taliban has been treating Afghan women. They're forcing me to wear niqab. They're forcing me, even I said, okay, I accept it. I would wear niqab, I will go outside. No, you have to wear niqab and then be accompanied with a man and then go outside. Well, my father's dead, my brother's not, I don't have brothers, my father's dead. Who I can take with me to go outside? But even if I wear niqab, even if I have a male companion, I still have other restrictions, which is having a proper reason. It means I can't even go outside for my mental health. And it's incredibly suffocating for me as a woman who's currently living under this government and keeping positive. Thank goodness I have really strong mental health. I just wanted to sort of find a way for other fellow women that are very weak. Not everyone, is blessed with supportive male members in the family. I was supportive. I had a supportive father. Unfortunately, I lost him to cancer. Sometimes my mother is like, he wasn't courageous enough to keep you company in the Taliban. She is the strongest woman who has, kept me alive in this day. And then she says that, it sort of gives me a deja vu. She is a biologist. She studied biology to a master's degree in Kabul. So she's like, I can do everything. She's 65 years old, and she is the one who, made me the feminist I am at the moment. What I do under this restriction, I have been living in this apartment for 6 months straight, no going outside and hiding because of the work that I do. She told me that start reading, start writing, start documenting whatever you see, whatever that is happening to you. That's what I'm doing. But I'm humbly requesting from you guys that since you are our representatives, since you are our ears, our hands, our mouth, you're representing us. You're representing the women that have been studying tirelessly. Is there anything, any hope for us to sort of gain our freedom back? I know that, this is going to be a huge question, but is there anything planned in order to stop this international community from recognizing this group? They're traveling in first-class airplanes, well knowing that they have a target in their head. They have 5 million target in their head because being a wanted criminal. And it's incredibly funny. We also see our other respected female politicians covering up their head because of the fear that they have from the Taliban. What we can do, what can give us some hope? I know that I might sound very frustrated, but I was, terribly waiting for a chance like this so I can talk to people, I can get inspired, and I am inspired. I feel incredibly inspired from Huria Jan. I feel incredibly inspired from Marufa Jan and from my respected mentor, and I'm really, really grateful to be there today. Thank you very much for today's program, and I hope I didn't talk very much. I love you guys.
Okay, so who would like to give any comments back to this? I mean, Hadia, you did not talk too long. Thank you so much for speaking up. I mean, this is what this space should be, right? So yeah, who would like to say something? I see
Jessica, because
yes.
Sorry, I just jumped because she addressed me. I would like just to say a few words to Hadia. Hadia, you're an incredible, brave, strong, young woman in Afghanistan, and we are so proud of you. It's been an absolute honor for me to have you as my mentee, but unfortunately the political environment turned down and I couldn't help you the way I should, and I couldn't be in touch with you since I have got so many engagements. But I'm sure that you understand, and I'm sure that you know that our path is the same, and we have this fight together and we go together to achieve our rights. And you have every right to be frustrated, as you're an example of an Afghan woman being stuck in Afghanistan without any help. As you said, you have lost your father, you don't have a brother, and you're with your sister and mother, and you couldn't go out even for taking a breath, just to be fresh, putting other important things aside. But what can we do as Afghan women who are outside of Afghanistan, and those of us who has a platform? I believe that we should not let the discourse of Afghanistan, in particular women's rights, die down. We keep this and we shed lights on what's happening in Afghanistan. We do not use any opportunity to talk about Afghan women in international platform. And I believe that one cannot talk about justice, human rights, women's rights without pointing out Afghan women who are suffering the most right now. If someone is delivering a statement in an international platform, should not forget Afghanistan, in particular Afghan women, and we want to keep this momentum alive. The other thing I should say, that we Afghan women do not approve when international community engage with the Taliban without setting foundations, because that's very important subject. If they engage with the Taliban, if they say that Taliban are chained or the Taliban are a reality of Afghanistan, okay, I don't argue that whether it's true or not. I'm saying that please set conditions before engaging with the Taliban. And of course, that is what I want and what I raise in every single international platform, that please do not legitimize the Taliban. Please do not recognize the Taliban. You need to set the conditions. Women are, Afghan women are the beacon of our society. How they can just ignore, how they can just put aside Afghan women. And as I mentioned in my statement, Afghanistan is the only country in the world who forbidden education for women. That's not acceptable, and we are together in this fight, Adia. We will continue, and let me thank Ban Ki-moon Center, Jessica, Monica. They are here with us and they are uplifting us. That's very important. And again, just to conclude, I'm so proud of you, and I'm so happy that Afghanistan has this vibrant, strong generation of educated girls, educated women.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Yeah, I really don't know what to respond to this. This is really powerful, and it's really nice that you are here with us today and discuss with us. Yeah, Marufa, before you were unmuting yourself, did you want to?
I just wanted to add something. First, bravo, Adia John, and I salute you. We never forget. You are making the history of brave women like Malala in the past. So I salute you, and I'm very honored to meet you in person. Okay. One thing I have to continue. I agree with what Your Excellency Manisha Jan, you're saying. I agree with all what well said. However, I think we are missing one piece here, which is the international feminist movement connection with the Afghan feminist movement. We are missing that, and this is something that I see kind of a vague or a gap between us. I believe that our role in diaspora, Afghan women leaders who are in diaspora, we can be a good in between connector between these two movements. The international feminist movement in Canada, especially leaders in our faculty, they are right now working with me to help scholars at risk in Afghanistan program. So if we do that, we raise voice. And this unity, international unity among women, can bring voice up. So I think this is something that we have to work harder. And it is a little bit, the voice is silent from outside of Afghanistan. You're doing a great job. You're so much ahead of us, and we have to learn from you. You're working so hard. You're standing in front of Taliban while we are in peace living, and we are not that much, out. And to be honest with you, I do my best day and night. I contact with my students and try to release their sadness and talk to them and help in somehow I can. However, you brought your voice give me a kind of message that something bigger we have to do, which we are missing, and it is the international feminist connection with international women's movement, and we have to do that. And I promise you that I will do my best from my side, and I'm sure that my other fellow who are outside, and I have very strong girl Huria John here and many of others. Manisha John, I was in so many platforms in Twitter. She's very much outspoken person around the world, but we have to bring the international voice out of the Afghan community, woman community, out of us. We need like Jessica, we need others who are mainstream and from other countries to talk about this. So this is something is missing, I believe, and we have to work together. if it makes sense. Thank you.
Yes, totally. Thank you so much. This is really a good point, and also something that we can take with us and that we will, I think, give forward, because we also have a good connection. And I think all of us are also active outside of our regular positions here at the Ban Ki-moon Center. And this is really the sort of, I mean, it is so obvious somehow, but it is really, just closing this gap of feminist movements and the connections. I see that Masha, sorry if I don't pronounce your name correctly, has a question. Please, you can. Masiha. You can unmute yourself, and yes, hi, it's nice to see you.
Hi to everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I don't have a special question. I just wanted to thank the team of Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens for organizing this event to raise awareness about the situation Afghan women are facing with the Taliban takeover of our country, and the respected speakers for providing insightful information about Afghan women's situation in Afghanistan. Afghan women have suffered a lot, and the suffering is from decades. And now even their basic rights are being taken from them. This is a great platform for raising their voices for their rights. I thank you for providing this platform to Afghan women. By this, everyone will get to know about the violence women are facing with the Taliban takeover and the realities on the ground. I hope we have more spaces and platforms so that voices of Afghan women reach to the people around the world, and they stand with the Afghan women to support them. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the floor and speaking up. Are there any other questions or remarks from the audience, from our speakers?
Yes, Jessica, because I couldn't see any hand raised for question. That's why I took this opportunity. So first of all, I wanted to just have my inputs, and I'm really honored to meet Hadia John. I'm really surprised with her talent, smartness, such a wonderful young activist she is. Unfortunate, I was not aware of her activities. So thank you very much again from Ban Ki-moon Center for this platform that we have met wonderful activists like Hadia John and Masiha John. So regarding her question, what we can do following Her Excellency Bakhtari and also Ustad Morfa John, beside those points, I think as Her Excellency mentioned, there should be a specific accountability mechanism for Taliban, because when they have taken Afghan people and specifically Afghan women as granted. So there should be some specific mechanism when the international community or other actors, US, AU, when they are contacting them, when they are talking with them, when they are communicating with them. So there should be something that they could take further, those accountability and those and the measures should be taken. So if they are promising something and they are not following those promises, there should be some punishment and condition-based, efforts should be there, as I mentioned before, and Ustad Bakhtari also mentioned that. The second point could be that as we always hear about these reports or violation of human rights in the country, under the umbrella of human rights monitoring, UNAMA specifically, I'm again insisting on this point, UNAMA should work together with the Taliban to improve the reporting and prosecutions of GBV. So we have reports of an increase in GBV cases, but there is no accountability to address those stuff and to follow up on those cases. UNAMA could use Sharia as a tool which condemns violence against women and girls. Islamic law also ensures that courts will hear domestic violence cases. So this thing should be a priority while talking and engaging with Taliban. Beside that, for when it comes to programs and humanitarian assistance, there should be some specific intervention, supporting women organization, providing support and also protection of the Afghan women's movement in Afghanistan, and also the diaspora initiatives. United Nations, European Union, US, and other international organizations and government must recognize Afghan women not as victims, but as their equal partners. And this recognition must be facilitated through strategic partnerships with women CSOs or civil society organization in Afghanistan, amplifying advocacy opportunities that are driving by Afghan women like Zahra Jan, and investing in innovative ways to provide direct financial support to these civil society organizations that are in really bad situation currently in Afghanistan. Beside that, as I mentioned before, a targeted funding stream to support those functions of women organizations should be there in place. And if it is not, it needs to be in consideration for supporting those efforts on the ground. Programs should be designed with a small grant approach, which would enable a smaller women-led organization. And also, as you asked me before, and I forgot to reply on that, for women's economic empowerment, because the current situation in country requires those holistic approach to provide women with such intervention where they can help themselves and empower themselves economically. Invest in capacity building to pair local and international organizations and increase their ability to provide humanitarian support through joint trainings, technical mentoring, access to funding, and knowledge transfer. There are different organizations in the world that they are interested, but there should be a sort of, action-oriented network to connect these organizations with the organization currently active in Afghanistan and are struggling. So they could share their experience, their inputs, and sometimes their technical resources. It's not always about financial resources, but sometimes about technical resources, especially from the countries that they had the same experience as Afghanistan is struggling right now or having right now. As Hadia Jan mentioned that she's a mentee for Her Excellency Bakhtari. So I'm also insisting on that point, that there should be a facilitation for mentorship between Afghan women in exile and NGOs and women's group operating on the ground. Support for mentoring programs between women inside and outside the country is needed to create an environment for women's group to operate, contribute to humanitarian assistance, education, vocational training, job creation, and community development. Beside that, one of the things that I've been through, and I had this experience, that's why I put it as a recommendation here to share with the audience, is there is a strong need for financial assistance especially from US side, but also I'm calling the other donor countries to provide more financial support to countries where Afghan refugees are fleeing and residing there. They should place a particular focus on ensuring that Afghan women and girls have access to healthcare, including sexual and reproductive health services and work permits. Donor governments should incentivize host countries to allow female Afghan refugees to enter and integrate into the social and economic fabrics of society. They must have the rights to education, work, social and political activism. We do have some reports where these women are struggling. They flew to Afghanistan to have a better life and are struggling in those countries because there is no guarantee mechanism to ensure their stability. So I think those are some of the points that need to be considering while engaging with Taliban, while financing the programs, and also specifically some for different categories of CSOs, medias, activists in the country and out of the country. So those points are the points that I have noted down, and I hope it will be really considerate. And I'm really happy that Masiha Jan has joined us, and she echoed her voice with our voice to advocate for Afghan women's rights. Thank you, Jessica. I hope I didn't talk too much.
No, please. I hope nobody is allowed to say that anymore, because this is a platform for you to raise your voice. Okay, I see that 3 more people have raised their hands. We only have around 10 more minutes, but yeah, I will give the floor to, I think it was Zahra, and then to Sarah, and then to Vida. And then unfortunately we will, slowly have to come to a closing. So Zahra, please go ahead.
In the case of women, the restrictions are so high that women are completely removed from the scene. Their clothing is forced, their work is taken away, and our daughter can't go to school. An organization just promised, we will do something, but they didn't. UN had meeting with protester girls and promised that we will bring pressure on Taliban, but it didn't work. The Taliban promise, but they don't take actions. And international institutions must be aware of the current situation in Afghanistan and not recognize the government and warn them repeatedly to respect the rights of the people, especially women.
Thank you so much, Zahra, and also for sharing your story and for being there on the ground and just keeping up the forces and showing that.
As a dentist and women's rights activist, since the fall of the Republican government and the establishment of the Taliban, the situation has changed for everyone, especially for women. Women stayed in the house, girls were deprived of their rights to education, girls' schools were closed, and female administrative staff were not allowed to work. And even a doctor who deals with this sickness is not allowed to work. And nowadays, Taliban make people for compulsory hijab, which should be black and just eyes should be seen. And even a doctor should wear such a dress in this hot weather. People's economic situation has changed. People are not able to pay doctors' fees. The death rate of mothers has increased. The price of medicine has gone up. Even I have lost my previous patients due to economic problems. And also now here a fresh news that one explosion happened in Kulla Pushta of Kabul that killed and injured up to 60%. This is the situation of Afghanistan. This is the economic situation, the security situation of Afghanistan. And also some girls of Unity and Solidarity of Afghan Women are joined now in this meeting, like Vida, Sara Latifi, Yasamin Ghiyasi, Wajiha, Sanam Kabiri, and thank you from all of them.
Thank you so much, Zahra, and sorry for interrupting before. Can I move on to the next question? I do not want to interrupt you again, I'm sorry. I think the connection was gone. Okay, so unfortunately it's already 6:30, but I promised to give, I promised to give the floor to Sarah next. Please go ahead.
سلام و وقت بخیر. آرزو داریم که حوری سردار در قسمت ترجمه ما را کمک کنن.
مهربانی آزاده.
سلام خدمت تمام عزیزانی که همین لحظه صدای ما را میشنوند. خوشحال هستم که در چنین جلسه با شما بزرگان قرار دارم.
So Sara Latifi has thanked everybody for joining us today, and she's happy to be here in this platform with us.
همیشه خانمایی که یک جای میشن و درباره خانمای افغانستان گپ میزنن روحی ما را بالا میبرن و ما مبارزات خود بیشتر میسازیم.
Sarah John said that whenever women are gathered and talking about Afghan women's situation, then they are like inspiration for us and we get really inspired.
و تشکر میکنیم از شما که همیشه صدای ما را به تمام جاها بلند کردین و صدای زنای افغانستانی را به تمام مردم گفتین که در افغانستان هم زنی وجود داره که در چنین حالتی زندگی میکنه و صدایشان به گوش جهان رساندین. قلبا از شما تشکر میکنم.
She's thanking us all for providing this opportunity and raising Afghan women voice and sharing it with international community and emphasizing on the existence of Afghan women and their struggles. So she's thanking us.
هرچند شما میدونین که افغانستان وضعیت امنیتی به خانم‌ها خیلی بد است، به خصوص به خانم‌های مترس که اصلا نمیتونن از خانه خود برایند، اما باز ما همت مبارزه بسته کردیم و میخوایم فردا دادخواهی در مقابل مکتب داشته باشیم و بگوییم که چرا مکاتب بسته است، چرا زنها اجباری کنن، آیا زن حق نداره تصمیم بگیره چگونه لباس بپوشه، کجا تحصیل کنه، کجا درس بخونه، چرا صدای ما هیچ شنیده نمیشه و همیشه طالب هیچ کسی چیزی نمیگه، همیشه میمونن که زنای افغانستانی زیر ظلم و ستم قرار بگیره.
She says, although the security situation in Afghanistan is really bad, but still the Afghan movement's going on, and they are planning to have a protest in front of a school to talk about the hijab and the restriction for women's education, girls' education, and to ask international community why they are not held accountable Taliban for their action against Afghan women.
با هزاران امید درس خواندم و میخواستم یک قاضی شوم، یک وکیل مدافع شوم، سارنوال شوم، اما امروز تمام آرزوهای خود در یک جای عمیق دفن کردیم. حتی نفس گرفتن برام مشکل است. امشب با تمام فامیل خود خداحافظی میکنم. امکان داره فردا من از تظاهرات زنده نبرایم، امکان داره فردا من قربانی از این جنایتی که طالبان همیشه در مقابل خانمای معترض میکنن یکی از قربانیایشان فردا ما باشم. اما خوشبخت هستم که در مقابل این ظالما ایستادگی میکنم و اگر شهیدم شوم به افتخار شهید میشم.
She says that she had thousands of hopes and she studied really hard. She wanted to be a judge or a prosecutor or a defense lawyer, but now all of her hopes are diminished. And by taking part tomorrow in these protests, she may be not alive. And I think I missed the last part, sorry.
ما و تیمم همقطارانم، تیم اتحادم بستگی زنان هیچ وقت سکوت اختیار نکردن، در مقابل این گروه جاهل همیشه ایستادگی کردن و انشالله فردا دوباره ایستادگی میکنیم در مقابلشان، یا آزادی خود به دست میاریم یا یا شهید میشیم.
She says that their team in Afghanistan, the Women Freedom Movement, they will still stand against the Taliban. They will raise their voice. They will do advocate. Although if they lose their lives, still they will be called shaheeds of women rights activists in Afghanistan.
شعار ما و تیم ما همیشه آزادگی است. ما میخوایم آزاد زندگی کنیم بدون قید شرط، اما شکلی که دخترای دیگه میتونن در پاکستان، ازبکستان، ایران، قطر که کشورهای اسلامی هستن میتونن درس بخوانن، تحصیل کنن، وظیفه بدن. ما هم میخوایم که مثل اونا درس بخوانیم.
Their slogan of movement is freedom and living freely. So they also want to live and work freely like as other girls in the other countries like Pakistan, Uzbekistan, other countries that they have access to education and work freely. They also have the same hopes and want to have it.
افغانستان نیاز به یک انقلاب داره که این بار انقلاب افغانستان توسط زنان افغانستان صورت میگیره.
So Afghanistan needs a drastic change, and this time this change will be done by Afghan women.
طالبان تمام حق و حقوق زنها را به خودشان یک خیال فکر میکنن یا با او حق و حقوقی که خودشان دارن در خانه بندی میشن، اما غافل از این که زنها حق و حقوق خودشان به دست میارن، به جاده ها میبرن، به هر نحوی که باشه صدای خود بلند میکنن. اگر با قیمت جانشان هم تمام شود هیچ وقت از مبارزه دست نمیکشن و همیشه شعارشان آزادی میباشه.
سارا جان، من این قسمت صحبت‌هایتان ترجمه میکنم و اگر در یک جمله دیگه هم شما خلاصه بکنین، به خاطر که سژن نزدیک خلاصی است و نشه گپای شما نیمه بانه و امی سژن زوم ما کلوز شود. سو امی جمله تان اگر تکرار کنین چون من فراموشم شد صحبت‌های قبلیتان، معذرت.
طالبا یک گروه پروژه‌ای هستند که میخواین که زنان را بندی بسازن و میخواین با از تفنگ اسلحه با فید کردن خانم‌ها زندانی شن، اما برعکس غافل از این که زنان افغانستان به جاده ها مبراین و حق خودشان میگیرن.
So Sarah mentioned and said that the Taliban is a projected group and they are not aware of the Afghan women movement, that they will stand in front of them and they will take their rights from the Taliban, and they are not afraid of doing that.
Okay, thank you so much, Horia, for translating now very spontaneously. And thank you so much, Sarah. Yeah, can you please tell her that we are very happy that she and her colleagues from the Solidarity Movement joined. It's really, a pleasure that with your help also that we can communicate and just, have this platform, and that they are here and just, sharing how it is on the ground and about their activism.
شو سارا جان، خانم جسیکا، از شما و از همکارایتان، از تمام دوستانی که به نمایندگی از جنبش زنان آزادی خواه در برنامه امروز اشتراک کردن تشکری کردن و گفتن که ما خوشحال هستیم که شما اشتراک کردین و همصدا شدین با ما در برنامه امروزی.
کار از ایشان و ما همچنان در اخیر میخوایم از تمام دوستان داخلی و خارجی که صدای ما را میشنن تا حد توان خود صدای زنان افغانستانی را در تمام نقاط جهان برسانند تا بفهمند که در افغانستان هم زنانی وجود دارد که در زیر ظلم و ستم قرار دارند. تشکر بسیار زیاد.
تشکر سارا جان. So as a last sentence, she said that thank you very much for this platform, and they want us to take our voice and stand for Afghan women's situation and raise our voice for their situation and let the international community know how the situation are there for Afghan women. And she thanked us.
Thank you so much, Horia. We are unfortunately already over time, and we do have a very nice sort of closing engagement by one of our BKMC Center Fellows. So Horia, could you please tell the others of the Solidarity Movement that we are very sorry, but that we cannot take their questions. I did write my email address into the chat, so in case they can write me an email, and if they want to be connected to you or any other speakers, then I will make sure to create sort of this network.
شو خانم شاهجهان کبیری، یاسمین جان قیاسی و تمام دوستایی که از جنبش آزادی خواهی زنان در برنامه امروز هستن. خانم جسیکا گفتن بسیار با معذرت که چون وقت برنامه کم است ما فرصت از اینکه بر شما هم پلتفرم بتیم صحبت بکنیم داده نمیتونیم، اما خانم جسیکا ایمیل آدرس خود به چت شریک کردن، گفتن اگر شما میخواین با سپیکرهای و پنلستای برنامه امروز به ارتباط شوین، سوالاتتان بپرسین، میتونین که ایمیل بکنین و خانم جسیکا حتما شما را وصل خواهد کردن. فعلا میرن به بخش اختتامیه برنامه و از شما معذرت خواستن که چون وقت کم است از اون خاطر فرصت به خاطر سوال و یا صحبت دیگه دادن نمیتونه.
Thank you, Horia.
Pleasure.
So I would really like to thank the speakers from Canada, from Afghanistan, from on the ground. Your Excellency, thank you so much for staying here with us the whole time. Thank you so much, Monica, also for just supporting the Ban Ki-moon Center's mission and creating such an inspirational team and dedicated team that's behind all of this. And I'm really optimistic now that we can change something if we just really stand all together and if we keep strengthening our networks, because we really have great people out there on the ground internationally, the diaspora regionally, and we just have to use this opportunity now and use this platform. And please reach out to me, to the Ban Ki-moon Center, and we will make sure to connect each and every one of you, and hopefully we can start a new movement. And I would now, as a really nice closing, give the floor to our dear Ban Ki-moon Center fellow Lale, who will read a poem for you. And yeah, unfortunately, not all of us will understand, but I am sure that it will be very empowering. Lale, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to represent one of my points. And it's actually in Dari, but I want to dedicate this to the very brave and courageous women of my country and to all of you. Thank you very much. سکوت میکنم و نگاهم به نگاه شماست. شما که در خوشبختی خوشحالید و در آزادی آزاد. این لباسهای رنگین، این لبخندهای شیوا، این کتابهای سنگین، این ورقهای مرغوب از این درختان زیبا، کی تواند نوشت حقیقت این درد بیدار را؟ 32 حرف کمبود می کند، 32,000 حرف و بی نهایت درد کار است برای بیانش. شسته یا ناشسته مهم نیست، چشمها کار است، چشمها پر یا خالی مهم نیست، مغزها کار است، مغزها سیاه یا که سفید مهم نیست، رنگها کار است. و احساس در اوج بی احساسی و عشق در اوج بی مهری کار است، عشق. در میان این همه هیاهود من و تو هر دو تنهاییم میدانم. تلاطم احساسی من و تو هر دو بیماهیم میدانم. در انتظار دادخواهی خسته بیقراری دریای راز است نفس پنهانت میدانم. ثانیه ها می شکنند تو فریاد فلکی، پیراهن آزادگی بر تنت، روحت سرود عشق می خواند میدانم. جهالت باز می تازد و وحشت باز می خندد، تو در بند تهجر به زهر درد شب می پیچی میدانم. مادرم به کرسوی امیدی از طلوع آن دیار مرزها به پاره قلبش برای انتظاری بی پایان می گرید. به گوهر همت و غیرت به کاروان بردگی می تازی. برای حق دیروز و فرداها، برای رنج برابری ها و عدالت ها، برای رقص آزادی در شعله سنگسار می سوزی میدانم. میدانم اما تو بدان این نیست که غریو خروشمان روزی حقها می طلبد، مرزها می شکند. با تیشه تیز بینش دیوارهای پندار باطل را پایمال و تاریخ می گرداند و دیگر هیچ یک از اینها مهم نیست. غمگین مباش، غمگین مباش، فریب این موسیقی غمگین را مخور که دیگر اشکی نمانده. بگو بشکنن که دیگر قلبی نمانده و نوشته کن که دیگر اینجا متنی نمانده. Thank you very much. تشکر بسیار زیاد.
Oh, Lale, this was really beautiful. It sounded like a song, especially for those who did not understand, but very touching. Thank you so much for opening up, and I'm sure that the rest of you also really enjoyed this. Yeah, I'm really happy that we had these amazing 1.5 hours now together, and I just hope that we all stay in touch, and I all wish you, I just hope that this strength stays with you, all of you. And thank you so much, dear audience, for listening in, and hopefully we will hear and see you for another Women Empowerment event. Thank you so much, dear speakers, Ambassador. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. Thank you.
Goodbye.